Alright, so let's talk a little bit how to create interface with Grasshopper, which you can control the Rhino model directly. Okay, by dragging the sliders, toggle the view, or turn on, turn off some layers, which you can actually see the layer right here. I can turn on, turn off the wall layer by these toggles. Right, so that's the result of this Grasshopper script. So let me go ahead, open Grasshopper. I can close this guy. All right. Before I start this tutorial, I want to talk quickly about how I create this frame structure, with triangles in Grasshopper. Let me turn off the wall layer first. Switch the view to shaded. It's a little bit easier to see. Let me hide this guy. Okay. All right. So what I did to create this wall structure or the frame structure is by first load this mesh. Okay. And this mesh is available actually in the mesh layer. I turned it off. As you can see, this is the result I did in the first project. I use a circle parking. You get a lot of points. Then I create a Delaunay mesh. Right? That's how you get this mesh. Pretty simple. I bake the mesh. I rotate to make the mesh vertical, so it's like a window. That's all I did in Rhino. Right? Then I load this mesh into this component. If I turn off the mesh, you can see this component create frames from the mesh. If I use Control Alt click, you can see this ones come from the Wavebird. Okay, which generate frames automatically. In the Wavebird, you can control the distance, which will give you the fatter or thinner frames. Really simple script. That's it. And also I add another component, which is this guy, the thickness, right? Which generate the thickness for the wall. So you can see the wall is being thickened, and I can drag the slider to change that. Okay. The Wavebird plugin is available. You guys could download. Follow this link. It's all free. Okay. It's deal with the mesh. Really excellent, tools. All right. So the logic now is I have distance, which is the thickness of the frame. If I plug in this guy, 11, you will see. I can drag this and you can see the thickness will update. You can make the the line really fat. I'll make it really low. All right, so that's how I did this script. Then the next step is create a user interface to allow people only control the distance slider. So what I did is I download another two Grasshopper script, the plugins, which I put it here. One is the human UI, another is human. Okay. As you know, Grasshopper always use animal name. Right? Human is animal, so it's no surprise to see that. You can follow the instructions to install these two plugins, human UI and human. So I have them available here. I can show you H. No, it's not this H. Yeah, human UI. You got a bunch of new tools they can create windows, buttons, sliders. Yeah, that's human UI. You have another set. Where is the human? Right here, which has other functions. Communicate with layers. You can communicate, turn on, turn off layer, that kind of thing. All right, so these are 2 plugins you should install. Then talk a little bit how we create this interface. So first thing I will do is I will relink the distance to my slider. This is my slider, right? Which have this current value as 5. I should just link this value back to distance, right? So instead of using a slider here to change, it will ask a slider in the UI interface to control. So let's try that. Right, you see that is actually controlling the sliders in Grasshopper. Right, so that's a pretty nice way you can block some of this complexity. And the script to generate this is really simple. I create a window. This is a transparent window. If I use Control Alt, click, you can see this is where this comes from. You can define the components inside this window. Also, you can create certain width and height for the window. I will just leave everything for default. So in the component, I have this string, change window thickness. Let me make this window not transparent. I will make a solid so it's easier you can see. I have this solid version. Okay, so it's easier you can see that. All right, so the first line is thickness is something, right? So here first I create where is that string? This is the change the window thickness. Yep. But if you follow this line, right, you have D1 to D7. So this is individual component I assembled in the window. So D1, if I follow that, where the D1 goes, right here. So this one is a change window thickness, which is text string. Right, and this string will be updated every single time you drag the slider. So let's do that. Right, so when you drag the slider, the new string will kick in. The name is the thickness is 0. Right, this 0 is actually a holder, a value which can be updated by the slider. So that's the slider value right now is 20. But each time you drag the 20, you see what happened here. This change to 13. If I drag it, 16, right? So each time you drag this slider, the value gonna communicate into this component, and then you're gonna push into the string. That's the reason the thickness is 12. It's update right here. Right? It just gives you a little bit feedback. When you drag, you do want to see some text, like gonna update. So this is the way you make the string embed with a variable, which will be updated by the slider. So that's the first part of the component. It's very simple, just a slider. The second part is a Rhino command. The human UI allow you to stream a Rhino command directly into Grasshopper. So for example, here I have this command. The name is the full screen. This is a Rhino command. If you don't know that, you can actually type the full screen right here, which gives you the full screen. Right? You can also plug in another command named the gradient view, which is also a Rhino command. If I type gradient view, you'll see the background became blue. I can do that again. Gradient view, you can change it to gray. All right. So the Rhino command here, two of them can be plugged in as buttons. So it's really convenient. Here, if I want to do a full screen, I just click full screen, which will trigger the Rhino command. You got a full screen. Or I can click gradient. You got a gradient. Makes sense? So it's really nice way to do Rhino thing with Grasshopper. And then the last one is a toggle on and off button. So this is the button. Oh, actually, this is the button. Sorry, this is just the text, the label for the button. This is the button, toggle. You can use Control Alt. You can see where this one comes from. And then this button is being used to control a layer. So here the layer name is wall layer. Okay. So if I look at my layers in Rhino, I have a wall layer. Within this wall, you see these two columns. Right. So if I click off, on, I can toggle these layers through this UI. Make sense? So it's basically communicate to Grasshopper first, and then feedback to Rhino. So it's like zigzag, right? One thing you want to make sure is you always make the Grasshopper file available. You should not turn off the Grasshopper or minimize, otherwise the communication will not work. So if I do a full screen, instead of close Grasshopper, I just drag it, make it really far away, so you can still have everything communicate. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty much. And then at the end, I will double click to turn off the window. If you don't use it, just double click the toggle to turn off. I kind of like the transparent window, so let me make this one active again. I use my transparent window to compose the component. Double click again. So this time you got this transparent window. Okay. So I think that's pretty much about the UI. Then let's talk a little bit about this part of the script. This part of script basically we call this automatic baking, because each time you change something on Grasshopper, in the traditional way you have to manually right click and bake, right? This script will do automatic baking. So anytime you change a slider or change a value, everything will be automatically baked into this layer, bake layer. I have this one right here. So what this script will do is, if you pay attention, this is a bake layer, right? I have these objects. You can see it's right here. So if I drag my slider, what happens is that automatic bake will delete whatever existing object in that layer and rebake a new version. Because this happens really fast, so to give you the illusion you are actually changing this model, right? Actually, no. The old model is being killed, and the new model is being baked, right? So that's the kind of logic we call automatic or continuous bake. It's very useful. I mean, especially if you want to take advantage of all the rendering powers of Rhino. So for instance, here, if I change my preview to render mode, you can actually see all the materials, right? But at the same time, you still have Grasshopper you can manipulate, right? This is not easy to do if you don't have this kind of automatic bake, right? Because only after bake Rhino would calculate other things like shadows, material, etc. So here I have a light in Rhino just to demonstrate. If I move the light, you see the shadow will update. Pretty cool. That's because it's already being baked. Yeah, you won't have this thing in Grasshopper if it's just in Grasshopper, right? Say again? Okay, so her question is if the geometry is very complicated, all the computation is very intense, if this automatic baking gonna be a very slow. I think it will be. You probably will see the blink of the model when you drag the slider. So especially when you do some calculation involved with like physics simulation, like Kangaroo, it's quite intense to compute. Other things like if you deal with hundreds of points, you're trying to cut a topo from the section lines or project some curve to a very complicated topo, that's gonna slow down. But try it. You can push the limits and see how that works. So anyhow, I think in this set of the component, it's automatic bake. So only thing you guys need to do in the future is just to pay attention to the layer you bake to. In some case, you do wanna, if you see a lot of weird thing happening, just delete that layer, then you rename a different layer. You can run this smoothly. Okay, I don't have to explain too much in this part. Everything is automatic. All right, I think that's pretty much about this UI, the human UI script. I will stop right here.